It being 2022, you might not recall two right-wing activists, I would say operatives, Jacob Wohl, Jack Burkman. But back just a couple of years ago, they were almost constantly in the news for one or another ridiculous stunt attempting to take down people like Robert Mueller or Nancy Pelosi or whoever, usually alleging that they had been sleeping with dominatrices or strippers or something. Well, they're back in the news, and for something they got up to back in 2020. It was an election robocall scheme, and they've now pleaded guilty in a Cleveland court to a single felony count of telecommunications fraud over this scheme. You can see these operatives here. I'd forgotten about them, really. Anyway, what they did was, well, according to prosecutors, they targeted thousands of minority voters with pre-recorded messages that falsely claimed that they could face mandatory vaccination or be tracked by law enforcement if they voted by mail. They've been accused of trying to dissuade literally 85,000 voters in urban areas across the country through robocalls that included this sort of misinformation, literally in many different states. And that is seemingly, you have to do all of that for it to qualify as illegal and for there to be consequences. Just doing regular robocalls, I guess, is fine. Lots of politicians do it. It really needs to end. But they have actually now pleaded guilty, and that is great. They're facing other investigations as well, some of them having to do with those robocalls, Farron, but this is an interesting little throwback to pre-pandemic days.
I know. When I saw this headline, late yesterday, I was like, oh my God, I remember those guys, the little fun press conferences they'd have out in their driveways, the big buff like Navy SEAL dude they brought out that, yeah, he's sleeping with Elizabeth Warren, and everybody was like, good for her. But
get it.
What gets me is just the audacity of these kind of schemes that we see from Burkman and Wohl. They knew, I mean, they had to have known at least what they're doing is illegal, but they did it anyway. And now here we are 2 years later, they're just now pleading guilty. They're each probably looking at, I think, a maximum of 1 year in prison. That's it. I mean, there's no telling the kind of damage that they did in the 2020 election. We don't know if people were in fact intimidated and did stay home. Like you pointed out, tens of thousands of people received these calls. So this is a very minimal punishment, I think, for what these two individuals did. But the fact they did it in the first place, just blatantly lying, making up the weirdest conspiracies ever in this robocall. And they thought they'd get away with it. I don't know. I can't understand that at all.
Like, have they ever caught anyone for putting up? This happens every single election. Posters saying, due to unprecedented interest in the election, Republicans are going to be voting on Tuesday, Democrats are going to be voting on Wednesday. Those go up literally every election. I've never seen anyone go to jail for it. I think it was a good gamble for them to think that they would get away with it. I'm a little bit torn on the potential sentence. As you say, considering the damage done, a year does seem short, but I also think I would not want to spend 23 minutes in prison. And so a year, that seems pretty bad. I'm always torn in that particular area. It does seem weird that of all of the things they did, all of the attempts to defame public figures, that this is the one that they're getting caught on. That seems so weird. They're just gonna get away with having that guy standing with an AirPod in his ear, so he looked like Secret Service. He was literally just a guy with an AirPod. What a weird thing. And also, can I just say something that's gonna make me seem super naive or, I don't know, childish? It would never occur to me, and I would never do, putting together a robocall that you know is a lie and sending it out to lie to voters. It is so against literally every instinct I have politically. Like, imagine knowingly lying to people about stuff this consequential. I understand I shouldn't be new to the concept of crime. I know that people kill each other and stuff, but I don't get it. Just hold positions that are reasonable and persuade people towards them. Isn't that how this is supposed to work? I can't conceive of actively lying to people like that. I want to demonstrate to you the absolutely absurd lengths that Judge Eileen Cannon will go to protect Donald Trump in this document scandal. So take a look at this. Judge Deary, who is the special master, who's chosen by the Trump team, special master being mandated by Judge Eileen Cannon, has apparently just discovered recently that he has been undercut for some reason that apparently made no sense to him by Judge Eileen Cannon. So what happened is that she apparently, in a very sneaky way that we're gonna describe, tried to delay the time it'll take until you eventually find out whatever it is that he's discovering. Because remember, every day he's doing work on these documents. And she originally said, you have to be done by the end of November, pushing it back quite a ways until after the midterm elections. He was appointed and said, I'm gonna be done actually in like a couple weeks in October. And in theory, he might even have interim reports, information that he would like to put out there before the final report is actually done. She tried to stop him from doing that, and I wanna give you the details. So he sent this thing to her, this is documented, you can find the actual text if you want, but in it, he respectfully argued that an order that she had done that curtailed his authority to submit reports should be overturned, and in fact, it was overturned. Now, the way that this worked was, you might recall, Judge Eileen Cannon initially, before Raymond Deary was the special master, stopped the DOJ from analyzing the documents. So they had seized the documents back from Trump, they'd recovered them, and they were looking through them. She stopped that, okay. So that was appealed to the 11th Circuit, okay? The 11th Circuit decided, no, they can look at these documents. So because of that, Eileen Cannon needed to amend the order that she'd already put out so that the DOJ would now be able to look at those documents again. So she did. She decided when she did that to strike a portion that allowed for Raymond Deary to put out interim reports. Why? What does the one have to do with the other? Absolutely nothing, except that a couple of things have changed since she initially wrote that. Remember, when she initially wrote up this report saying, Trump's team wants a special master, she obviously wants whatever Trump wants, she wrote it up. She didn't know who the special master was gonna be. She didn't know what approach the special master would have to this investigation. She only had this construct that she had created, that she's gonna stop the DOJ from investigating it. She's going to allow Trump's team / the DOJ to choose someone, and they can look into it over the next few months, putting it off for some time until maybe people actually forget about this thing. Instead, what happened was the person that the Trump team picked was Raymond Deary, that they thought might be some sort of critic of the FBI or whatever. And it turns out that he's been more of a critic of their legal strategy, asking tough questions like, so are you actually gonna get around to specifically claiming that they planted evidence or that it was declassified? And we're gonna get to more of that soon. And that hasn't looked good for the Trump team, and by proxy, it doesn't look good for Eileen Cannon. So perhaps as a last chance bid to get him to delay what seems like the inevitable when it comes to this, she tried to block him from doing these interim reports. So he sent this message to her saying like, they didn't request that you do that in the 11th Circuit. Could you resume that? And so now put on the spot, she responded implying that, oh, there's other stuff in the order that will allow you to do those reports. Okay, so he's gonna be able to do the reports. Let's be clear about that. But if there's other things that let him do it, why did you specifically amend a specific portion that allows him to do it? Why did you take that out when it had nothing to do with the 11th Circuit? So I understand that for many of you, this is probably going to be like very inside baseball or whatever. And in comparison to the larger crimes that have been committed, maybe it doesn't seem that significant. But in the specific, like if you zoom in on what can she do to interrupt this thing, Eileen Cannon, the judge appointed by Trump, well, this might be about as much as she can do. And she is trying to max out her ability to interfere and delay this thing. Jayar, what do you think?
That is the whole point here. Delays, delays, delays. We've been hearing it from even the point of when she pushed this to a special master or approved that. And everyone in legal circles were like, maybe someone wants to throw her a hint and let her know this is making her look really bad. That is the entire point. Not to look bad, but to delay. And all of the things that come with it just happen. It's what it is, it's fine, it's cool. I'm here to work for Donald Trump. Whole point is to delay. Every time any legal thing hits any of these folks, from Steve Bannon to Donald Trump, who neither one are running for office, They shout about the midterms. Bro, you're not on the ballot. Why are we concerned about your legal issues in the midterms? This judge apparently cares about that as well. So when you see the actions and the activity that goes into all these moves to try and delay and make sure every step of the way, this is a new hurdle in the way of this, it's obvious that the whole point is to protect Donald Trump. This is a judge. This also illustrates the reasons why when Donald Trump was in office and that one judge ruled against him, he goes, well, he's Mexican or Latino or something. Of course he's gonna rule against me. This is his thought process with judges. He's always said it. I get to appoint my judges, and once I appoint my judges, they work for me. He thinks judges work for the person who appointed them. Not that, maybe they have particular leanings because this guy who appointed them likes the way they think or they likes their judicial approach to the law. All that stuff doesn't mean anything. All that just means is she is my appointed judge who's there to do what I tell her to do. Even when you're not in office, even when you're faced with all these types of charges. And finally, I'm glad people are starting to point out and see these holes in her argument that continue and continue. At what point are we gonna finally say everything about her is a big red flag?